Thank you for joining me today to hear about how we can use Agile in a different sector, in a different field. I want to talk to you about the startup that we built, a startup for integrating refugees. My name is Stephanie Gasche, or short Steffi. I'm an Agile coach in Austria, independent, and you'll hear my story in a second. So, what do I want to do today with you? I want to give this talk in order to achieve two goals. So one of the goals, it works. So two goals really. On the one hand, and this is way more important to me, is I want to inspire you. I want to inspire you that actually Agile is not just for the profit sector, but actually you can use it for way different things as well. And secondly, I want to tell you about my story, our story of how we used Agile in a different sector, different area. So, looking at my first goal, So what else can we actually achieve by implementing Agile? Let's discuss this for a second. So I want you, you probably have met a lot of people already at this conference, but still, I want you to turn around to somebody that you haven't yet talked to and discuss with the person either next to you or behind you or in front of you what skills or mindset do you think that you have developed for yourself due to actually working in an Agile environment? So how do you differ from your friends? How do you maybe have a different kind of daily plan than your friends? How are you different because you're working in an Agile field? Please discuss this with your neighbor for the next 3 minutes. Hi. All right. Can I hear some examples? How are we different? Are we different? Go ahead. Can everyone hear that? No? So getting feedback is more important, quick and dirty, getting things out there, trying, just doing it. Yeah? Thank you. So willing to adapt, so inspect and adapt, yeah? Anything else? One more.
Accepting complexity. So if you propose a solution, it's very easy for other people to find faults, but that's seldom when I propose to solve every problem. I just propose a solution where we dial up the good, turn down the bad. Many people are very kind.
Thank you. One more? Go ahead.
Small, fast experiments. Like really small experiments and then a review. Like, what did I learn?
Thank you. All right, so as I said, on the one hand, I want to inspire you. I want to inspire you that the agile methods and agile mindset, some of the things that we've just heard, are actually not only applicable to the for-profit sector. We can use it somewhere else as well. I know there's agile for university, agile for schools, agile for HR. There's so many different sectors that are where Agile is dipping into it, and now I'm going to talk about Agile in the non-profit sector. And I'm going to do this by talking about my personal example, which the journey really starts in the year 2015. Which one of you knows and remembers what you were doing in 2015? Yeah, some. For me, it was a really interesting year, a year to remember, a year I'll probably never forget. 2015, I was employed as a management consultant working in the Agile environment, doing Scrum, doing Kanban, etc. And I was tired. I was so tired from flying around, just jetting across Europe, from client to client, 4 or 5 days a week. I was just tired. I couldn't see any purpose anymore in giving my personal energy to, for that little bit of more profit. And I just, for me, there was no more purpose in that. So I said, okay, 2015, I'm going to actually take a break. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to go home to I'm going to actually be at home at some point, KPI of how many nights am I spending in my own bed. And actually focus on myself and focus on finding a purpose again. So that was my plan for 2015. And as we know, plans never change. So in 2015, I was going to do... that's what I was going to do. I was going to go home, I was going to go traveling, I was going to write a book because, nothing else to do. And what really happened though in 2015, and I mean being in Sweden, this is not going to come as a surprise, this is what happened. This is the reality that happened, that in between 2014 and 2016, a lot of people came to Europe, and especially to Austria, Sweden, of course, as well. But in Austria, we had over 130,000 people actually asking for asylum, to be granted asylum. So over 130,000 refugees coming to Austria, which, yes, that sounds like a very small number, but if you consider that Austria as a whole country is 8.7 million people, and Vienna being 1.8 million-ish as a capital, that's a lot of people. And so during this time, and especially 2015, lots and lots of people came to Austria, and the situation changed. Our country changed. The government, and I really don't want this to be a political talk, but the government, living in democracy, was rather slow. Because any way they would react, any way they would make a step, would be a political statement, and they weren't sure on which political statement they want to make, which, fair enough, that was the way it was. So what happened? Well, civil society jumped in. Civil society jumping in Austria means that there were suddenly, out of nowhere, hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands, like an incredible amount of private initiatives were started in order to help refugees in any way, doing photography classes with refugees, offering apartments to refugees, doing job trainings, any kind of initiatives for refugees, which was great, but all of it was very uncoordinated. And I hadn't realized this at that point yet, because in 2015, as I said, I was in the state of, okay, where's my purpose? What do I want to do? And then this happened. So I realized, okay, well, I was looking for a purpose. I've got some skills, I've got a certain mindset. How about, I try and help the situation as well? Because, what do we do really in Agile? We focus on the potential, and whether this is a good situation that refugees are coming to Europe or not, this is a whole different debate. It is a situation that we've got going on, so let's focus on the potential. Let's focus on what we can do from this, what we can learn from this, how we can, solve this issue, this situation right now. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to help. How can I help? Well, as a volunteer, as everyone else as well. So I was volunteering in these different asylum camps, refugee camps, and I realized it's complete chaos. Nobody really knew on how to help refugees, how to, let's just say, how to lead asylum camps was a problem back then, how to coordinate the whole thing. Everything was chaos. So I said, okay, well, I need to help here as well. And from, how can I help as a volunteer, I decided actually I can't. If I want to help something, if I want to change the situation, I have to be on the inside. I have to be part of the system in order to change it. So what did I do? I decided I would start working for the government, because the government at this point was actually looking for trainers for the so-called value and orientation courses, which are 8-hour courses on teaching values to people who have just arrived in Austria, which at this point were mostly refugees. So we're talking 8-hour course on values, for example, freedom of press, freedom of religion, equality, gender equality, solidarity, democracy. What do these things actually mean? And on the other hand, giving an orientation of life in Austria. So I figured, okay, that's a really, really good way to, to coordinate the whole thing and to help integrate people. So I did that for a while. And I realized this is a fantastic initiative, but it's not enough. And when I say it's not enough, I realized that actually, okay, well, I'm learning, and I'm learning that firstly, refugees, well, they need different things than what we're offering them. They need a different, they need more info, and they need different info in a different way. So I realized these courses are not doing it, not taking it far enough. On the other hand, what I realized is that actually I'm learning a lot. I'm learning how, what the typical refugee culture looks like, because of course a refugee is not a refugee is not a refugee. Everyone's from a different background, a different societal background, a different cultural background, different language background, different nationality background. So we can't actually compare a refugee to a refugee. So that's what I was learning as well. I was learning from the translators that I was working with, what is the culture generally like? If you're not a refugee, what's the culture like? So I was learning all of these things. And at the same time, I was also learning that people were waiting. So the refugees were mostly waiting. And what we were doing was helping them get information, but it was not solving their main problem, which was waiting. And when I say waiting, I mean waiting for German classes. I mean waiting for, of course, their asylum papers. Granting asylum. They were waiting for, meeting Austrians. They were waiting for starting their life in Austria. And I figured, this doesn't make sense. We have, as I said in the very beginning, because the government was not fast enough, let's say, there were hundreds of civil society initiatives out there who were doing exactly that, who were helping refugees learn German, who were helping them find friends, who were helping them volunteer, etc., etc. And on the other hand, we've got people waiting on exactly those things. Why are they not communicating? Why are they not, working together? We've got all the offers. We've got people who need this. Why aren't they connected? So this is something I realized from doing these talks. From doing these trainings. So, as we heard earlier, in terms of agile mindset, it was really at this point, I was just in an impediment mode, and I realized, okay, we need to solve this, but how do we solve this? So it was quite a funny, well, not funny, but it was an interesting ride home from my parents' house to my own house, which is about a 12-minute car ride. And I was sitting in the car with my brother, and we were discussing, you know, how's it going with the trainings and with refugees, etc. And I was like, it's so frustrating, because really, I don't understand, because I'm always, in every training, I'm like writing on the whiteboard all these links and all these civil society initiatives and all these places where people could go and where refugees could go and actually, you know, get information. And it's just so frustrating how they don't know about this. I can't believe it. And he went, well, there must be one place that people could go and like find out everything you need to know when you arrive in Austria. I'm like, nope, that doesn't exist. It would be very useful. You would think that that exists, but no, it doesn't. He's like, well, if it doesn't exist, why don't you make it? Like, why don't you create a place like that? I'm like, well, how? He's like, well, I don't know. Like, do they have internet? I'm like, yeah, of course they have internet. They have internet in every asylum camp. He's like, well, why don't you do it like an online platform? I'm like, yeah, and what am I going to name it? He's like, well, I don't know. I'm Refugee, whatever. So I was like, okay. So I went upstairs. This was a 12-minute journey. Went upstairs, checked out the domains in Austria, checked iamrefugee.at, still available, bought it, and started it. This is end of 2016. So this is about 8 months into my job as a trainer, 8 months into a job. In February 2017, it went live. In March 2017, so 1 month later, all the information was online. In May 2017, so 2 months later, everything was translated. And so in the summer of 2017, we had a, well, I don't want to say finished, but a pretty good integration platform in Austria. So one place where people could go and actually find all the information they would need when coming to Austria. So we're in the Agile, conference as well. What do we do when we start something, when we start a project, when we start a product, when we start something? We start with a vision. So we did that as well. So what's our vision? What was that? You can see by the end of 2018, so it's our former vision. By the end of 2018, every refugee seeking asylum in Austria should be handed the website iamrefugee.at directly in order to prepare for his or her new life in Austria. Thanks to all the information found on the website, every refugee should be empowered to have the same chances for personal success in the long run as someone who's actually been born in Austria and is thus automatically part of the system. So this is and was our vision. This is what we started with. So what do we need after vision? What do we usually do when we start with a product or a service? A roadmap, yeah. What else? Huh? KPIs? Backlog? Well, we need someone to build it, right? Developers, somebody, a team. So we had the vision. It's inspiring. It's good enough. So what did we need next? We needed a team. And seeing as we're... Does this work? This is our 1,000 likes on Facebook video. So what do we do next? Next, we needed a team. As I said in the beginning, so it was my brother who more or less inspired me. So in the beginning, it was my brother and I, and then after a while, we actually got more and more people on board. So in the end, and we still are, we were always about 7, 8 people in the team, always volunteers, so we still are. And what I find really interesting, because we are an interdisciplinary team, and it's really fun working together in an interdisciplinary team, and in our case also very intercultural, and also actually not located in one location. What I found out, and this is what I really want to share with you, because there's a lot of studies about volunteers and how volunteers are motivated, etc. And it's all about intrinsic motivation. We all know that volunteers don't get paid, so why would they work for it? Why would they work for us? And this is something I want to share, because most of you have heard of Dan Pink probably, and his studies on motivation. And he actually says that there's 3 intrinsic motivators out there. There's purpose, mastery, and autonomy. If you give this to people, they'll work for you for free. And this is exactly what happened with us. And what's still happening is that people were motivated through the purpose. So in the beginning, when you start something like this, of course, it's your friends who will help you. It's people that you know. For me, it was also colleagues, especially the translators, working for the Austrian government, working for doing trainings on values and orientation. Of course, I had a large group of colleagues around me who spoke the languages. So we're talking Farsi, we're talking Arabic, and we're talking English. And German, of course. And so in the beginning, it was the purpose that really motivated everyone to help me. But then, you know, once that was done, once the initial website was set up, everyone was like, okay, well, thank you, and we helped you, that's it. So then they left. And then we did like a, like a job opening. We sent it out on a few platforms. And the people that actually applied to us through that are the people who are still working with me today. And what's so interesting is that it kind of differed because they came for the purpose. Yes, it's the vision. But on the other hand, they actually stayed for the autonomy and the mastery. Because what I said to every single person, of course, I only learned this along the way, inspect and adapt. What I learned is that people stay if they can do what they want to do. So I said to everyone, look, this doesn't exist. You know, we're the first ones to ever create this. So whatever you want to try it out. You know, use us as a platform for experience, for getting an experience, for trying out new things. So for example, Katja, who's the blonde girl on the left, she came because she wanted to try out social media. She had just started a course at university for social media. And I was like, look, use us. So try out Facebook, try out Instagram, try out YouTube, try out all these channels. We can only benefit from it, really. So all these people or Bilal, who's not in the photo, he stayed because he wanted to try an app. He's like, do you need an app? I'm like, not sure, but yeah, go ahead and try it. So all these people stayed for purpose, for mastery, and autonomy. How did we work? So in terms of Agile, of course, we visualized our work. So we used Trello. It's the simplest way. It's just the way we organize ourselves, especially across locations. Trello is the easiest. We work in iterations, where there's a lot of things that we tried out, inspected and adapted. So one of the things that we started off with were really 1 month iterations. That was the first thing we tried. So for example, we would meet at the beginning of the month, do a planning, you know, what are we going to do in the next for the next month, and then meet again at the end of the month and see what did that result in, and what can we learn from that, and what are we doing again in the next month. So iterations, sprints for a month, on a monthly basis. Then we realized, okay, that's not really working for us as volunteers. That's too long a distance. So then we did 2-week sprints. Then we said, okay, that's too much. Then we changed it to co-creation days, where we sat together once a month for I think it was a full day. Then we said, okay, that's not working either. So then we did every second Friday co-creation. So we've tried loads of different things. And right now we're at the point where we just do a bi-weekly call and then distribute the work or poll the work, either or, depending. So we've tried out a lot here as well on how we can organize ourselves. We have a prioritized backlog. You saw some of it in Trello. In terms of prioritization, well, we try, of course, as I said, mastery and autonomy is super important for us. But if you're working in a non-profit sector, it's all about how to channel your energy, how to channel your time. So the backlog, the prioritization is super important. So on the one hand, yes, it's prioritized by what do people want to try out, but on the other hand, it's prioritized by what value can we add most quickly, let's say, and also what do our users need right now. And this is one of the reasons why actually I kept the job while doing this. I kept the job for the government, because on a daily basis, I was able to talk to the users. I was still doing trainings. I was still, getting constant feedback from users on how they're finding the website or the app at this point. And so it was mostly me prioritizing. This one, I think I've already said, most importantly, focus on delivery, focus on what is adding value, more than in the for-profit sector. because this is a hobby, this is supposed to be fun, this is our leisure time. So what happened next is that after a while I realized actually, yes, we're this group of people, these volunteers who come together, which in Austria is really like a charity association, like a society. But if you think about it in business terms, and why don't we? We're actually what you would call a lean startup. Why are we a startup? Well, if you look at Eric Ries's definition, it says a startup is a human institution designed to deliver a new product or a service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. We have never had a refugee crisis before in Europe during the digital era. So this is completely new to us, If this is not a startup, what is? So yes, we have the extreme uncertainty. Yes, we have new conditions. We have to experiment. Like if you look out there at other websites or startups or whatever who are working with the user base of refugees, it's completely new. Nobody knows what they want and what they need because, as I said in the beginning, they're so heterogenic. You have a top manager from Syria coming, as well as, a mother of 5 who's never actually gone to school. So it's super, you can't just say the one refugee. And this is something that we had to find out. And how does Lean Startup do this? Well, through the feedback loops and of build, measure, and learn. So how did we do that? So build. As I said, we started off with a website, but we said actually, if we are a website, why are we a website, firstly? Why aren't we a service? Why aren't we another service who wants to help refugees find jobs or something like that? Well, we said actually, there's already hundreds of thousands of services like that out there in Austria. There's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. That is not the problem. What is the problem? As identified in the beginning, the problem is that the bridge is missing. So we don't want to offer new services. All we want to offer is information. We want to offer an overview. So if we look at the overview that we want to offer, from which perspective? Well, obviously from a user perspective. So the way we build the website is to actually focus on the user, focus on who is this person. And so we differentiate between a person who is waiting for asylum, because it's a different journey towards integration, and somebody who's actually already got the papers, who's already got the asylum papers, because these are two different users, and people often forget that. So this is, the one thing is user-centricity. Secondly, Agile. We said, okay, well, it's such a complex field, this whole topic of integration. I mean, what is integration really? I was working for the integration fund and nobody really knew what that is either. So we said, okay, what is actually integration? We need to deconstruct this complexity. Well, actually, if you look at it, there's certain things that you could do to consider yourself on the path towards integration. So we said, actually, there's 9 different things. There's 9 different steps, and depending on where you are in your asylum paper process, different ones will be more interesting to you. So, on the one hand, of course, there's things like, if you don't have your papers yet, if you're not officially allowed to live in Austria yet, you can still find Austrian friends. You can still volunteer. You can still learn German. You can sometimes you can even get some education for free if you want. Or if you already have your asylum status, then you actually have to find an apartment, and you should really find a job. So these are different things that you could do in order to further your integration. And by deconstructing this whole topic of integration, and by visualizing it like we did, we said actually we're empowering people. We're letting people actually pull what they need. Because I'm not walking up to somebody and say, hey, you should be learning German, or hey, you should be, volunteering 5 times a week and doing this. No, we're offering this, and people can pull whatever they think is most useful to them at the moment. We also, what we did is we used Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. Everyone know this? Golden Circle, why, what, how. So we actually said, okay, well, well, actually, this is something I learned during my courses, is I had a lot of discussions. Why do we need to learn German? Why do we need to do voluntary work? Why do we need to do this, do this, do this? So a lot of the why. So in the end, I said, well, there's no point in me saying, well, you should find an apartment or you should find a job. No, people need to understand why first, because then they'll do it for themselves and not for me or for the country. So we split every part of our website into the 3 aspects. So why, for example, why does it make sense to find a voluntary job? What does it actually mean to work as a volunteer in Austria? Because of course there's legal restrictions, and there's a lot of rumors in Austria, especially in 2015, when so many people arrived. There were so many false informations going around. For example, that voluntary work means working 30 hours a week, unpaid, it's modern slavery, etc. No, in Austria you have a legal limit of 4 hours per week. You can't do more than that. So to actually clarify that and kick out rumors and gossip. And then the 3rd step of how. So to give people the opportunity to find all the links, all their information, all the, I don't know, let's say offices where they need to go to in order to find where they can get a voluntary job. So why, what, and how. So then, as I said, it's lean startup, build, measure, learn. The next step, now that we've built this website, we need to learn. We need to measure what we have from it. How do we do that? Well, getting continuous feedback through various ways. So as I said, I was still working as a trainer, so I was still working with refugees every single day. Secondly, of course, we used our platforms. I mean, Google Analytics is the best thing out there for non-profits like us. To actually find out who's visiting your website, who's visiting your, I don't know, YouTube videos, etc. And what was most interesting to us is actually that we saw through Google Analytics that most people were coming via Facebook. So then we started, focusing and channeling onto our Facebook page. And I want to share one interesting insight, let's say, call it that. So we got given a bit of credits for Facebook ads, and we invested them. And we said, okay, well, we want to target people who are, let's say, who like pages about integration or refugees in Austria, and just decide which user group we want to focus on. So we send out, I don't know, let's say we put up 100 euros and went to sleep. The next morning I woke up, and on our Facebook page we had so many disgusting comments, very, very anti-refugees, very, very anti-human. It was really disgusting. We were really shocked. We didn't know what was going on. So we figured out, okay, must have to do with the ads. There must have been something that went wrong. We must have targeted the wrong group. So we checked it again, and we saw, okay, well, we targeted 24,000 people in Austria. So we're like, okay, there's something, I don't know what's going on here, but okay, we'll change it. And so we were investigating it a bit, and then we realized if we, on the one hand, if we leave that group, but actually cancel out everyone who likes certain right-wing, extreme right-wing pages and politicians in Austria, let's maybe shorten or make it smaller, this user group. What do you think it went down to? How many people? We had 24,000 people before. How many people? 0? Almost. 6,000. So there's we learned that there's 18,000 people in Austria trolling integration platforms and pages. So this is something that we learned, and this is something that I want to share with you, because use whatever you have in terms of tools, in terms of online platforms, to actually understand your users, understand where you're coming from, understand what's going on out there. And Facebook is really, don't underestimate that. It's really, really useful for that. So in the end, we learned from that. And I want to share 2 things with you that we learned from it. On the one hand, we actually learned that we need to rename ourselves, because I Am Refugee is a great name for Austrians who want to understand what it's about, but actually if you're a refugee and you're living in a country and you want to feel safe there, you don't want to have that label on you. So we renamed ourselves to the 4 words that you learn in your first German class in Austria, which is what, how, and why in Austria, which is the questions that we answer with our website. And the second thing that we learned was that actually I'm the bottleneck. So we learned that I have all the information because I was working as a trainer, and so I was putting all this information on the website, but I was too slow. I was, doing too many things at the same time. So how could we improve this? How can we change the bottleneck? So in the end, we actually developed the platform in the way that we it's a wiki page now, so anyone can enter any information from anywhere in the world, more or less. So it's not me giving information anymore. It's anyone. If you say, for example, oh, this German course is not happening anymore, or there's a new one, you can change that on the app. So these are the two main things that where we pivoted because we had learned. Finally, what's the difference between, or how does it work with funding? Because that's a question that I often get. We never really receive funding. In Austria, that doesn't really work. I don't know about Sweden, but in Austria it didn't. And this is the main thing that I want to give, like, as a learning for non-profit versus for-profit. If we would have been for-profit, or if that would have been our aim, we would have had to pivot properly. So there were a lot of government funds out there saying, okay, are you helping refugees to find work? Are you helping refugees to learn German? Are you helping refugees to find an apartment? And yes, we were doing all of these things, but we weren't actually doing them ourselves. We were linking to these sites, to these initiatives, to these projects. So if we would have wanted some funding, we would have had to change the way we're doing things, our focus. But we said, actually, it's more important to us to have a bridge between these initiatives and refugees than actually get the funding ourselves. So we stayed on the path that we were taking. We stayed truly aligned to our vision. So we never actually got the funding. And that's the main difference. Do we want to go for impact, or do we want to go for where's the money? How much do we actually reach? How many people? How much impact do we have? I'm really disappointed in those numbers. I would have expected it to be way more. However, and this is something people don't think about, is firstly, most refugee families have one phone. So if we take the number up there, we could quadruple it. I don't know. We don't know. Secondly, for example, YouTube clicks. YouTube is being used differently by, let's say, a typical Syrian, for example. A typical Syrian would not share the link with a friend. He would download the video and send the video itself. So that doesn't come up on our numbers, on our data. So these are things that we have to think about when looking at this. At the same time, and this is the really nice thing about this initiative, is we get, of course, a lot of feedback. So we get, the messages saying, hey, because of your website, one lady, she went back to school because she figured out, oh, she can actually do that. Nobody had told her that. Or people who found friends in Austria because they found a website through our website that would give, like sightseeing tours in Vienna. Or another one who found a job because of us, because we had posted a video on how to write your CV. So these are like the personal stories that we received in comparison to these numbers. So if we want to go back to my initial two goals. On the one hand, I wanted to show you what we did. I think I just did that, and I'll be available until the end of the conference if you have more questions. And secondly, I said that I want to inspire you. So in my last minute, I want to share with you, firstly, what Agile practices, so Agile mindset, Agile methods, can you actually use in any other sector. So, I think I've mentioned all of these. Anything from, continuous learning, just do it mentality, the Scrum values, focus on the why, and then also the methods, the vision, an interdisciplinary team working on one thing, focusing on it, the prioritization, a backlog, small deliveries, visualization, iterations, MVP, short feedback loops, user-centricity, deconstructing complexity, pull principle, and self-organization. It is not just the for-profit sector where we can and where we should use this. And this is what I want to leave you with. Is just maybe when you go outside, and I think there's a short break coming up now, to think about the things that we identified at the beginning. So skills, methods, mindset that you have because you're working in an agile environment. How could you use that to maybe improve this world a little bit, make it a bit of a better place, change something that has been irritating you for a very long time? So thank you very much. Please follow us, share us, tell people about us. It's what we rely on. If anyone knows of anything that, like a similar website somewhere else, please contact us, because we have searched and we can't find anyone. So thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the conference.